Or I can tell if like people are believers. You can like sense the light in someone, and so it's like when you talk, it's like like breath of fresh air. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but and again, some of you guys will get it and you'll understand. And I think for some of us in this world too, you know, a lot of people talk about like the chosen ones and whatever, but it's like God really has set some people apart for specific things to do in his kingdom, right? And so, you know, the isolation, all of these different things that he's been putting people through, right? It's all for something. It's training, it's preparation, it's also for, you know, for the kingdom of heaven as well, so that when we get to heaven one day, it's like, oh, we're going to be counted as worthy, right? But at the same time, you know, everyone's battle is different, and some of us, again, and I think it does have to do maybe with the fact that like some of us have very unique experiences, right? So even some people who were in the occult and who left, right? They're also gonna, like, a lot of them talk about how, you know, they deal with warfare, right? They deal with certain things, and it's because the spiritual realm is angry, right? He doesn't, like, demon, or when I say the spiritual realm, I should say the kingdom of darkness is angry. Satan's angry because, again, he doesn't like to be exposed. And that's why everything's done in secret, right? And I believe the name for the occult itself actually means like hidden or secret, right? That's how they operate. And so when you start, and even when you think about it, even in these secret societies, they literally have blood oaths, which basically say, hey, if you talk about these things, right? Like, you're going to die. Like, we are going to kill you if you start talking about the things that go on here, right? And so I think that's also why a lot of people don't talk about it when they leave, because they don't, like, there's very real consequences for these things too. But with that said, we know that God is greater. We know that he's stronger. We know that he is more powerful than any, you know, any scheme of the enemy, right? And I think about, again, stories like Daniel in the lion's den, right? The enemy sometimes puts you in situations where he does try to kill you. So like Daniel, right? And why? Because Daniel was following God, right? He was praying, and, you know, he went against the decree to not worship your God anymore. And so that was what led him into the lion's den. But it's interesting because the very thing that the enemy can use or can try to use against you oftentimes is the thing that ends up backfiring on them. So the people, you know, the king's, what's the word? The king's men, I don't remember their names, but basically the officials of the king, right? They were the ones who wanted Daniel to be killed in the first place. And Daniel survived because of the power of God. This goes back to what I was saying. God is more powerful than any scheme of the enemy. And so Daniel survived, but then when the three officials were put into the same den, they died. The very same way that they tried to kill Daniel, guess what? It came upon them. And then I think about even, Haman and Mordecai, right? When Haman was trying to kill all the Jews, right? You know, he started preparing the gallows to hang them on, right? Because that's how he was going to take them out, literally, right? And so in the end, right, when he gets exposed and everything, you know, he ends up being hung on those very same gallows that were set aside for the Jews. And so, again, the weapon that's formed against us won't prosper. And, you know, we're not going to go home until God says it's our time to go home. But with that said, I just want to encourage you and remind you, like, who God is. And, like, there may be times where, like, yes, you know, you may deal with some things that are a little bit scary every once in a while. But the more that you become confident about your authority in Christ, you realize that these things have to fear you. You don't have to fear them, right? And so one more story and then I'll stop here. But I had a dream. Actually, this one I had recently. And I was in this dream with this, and I think this is a symbolic dream as well, right? But there was this man in this dream who was, it seemed like he was trying to be my friend in the dream. And right away in the dream, again, I knew something was off with this guy. and his eyes changed in the dream. So in the beginning of the dream, he looked like a human, but then all of a sudden he did something with his eyes, and his eyes turned to like fire, and he just looked at me in such a way that he tried to intimidate me in my dream, right? And so in the dream, right away I saw it, and I started like praying, and I was like, oh no you don't, and I was filled with boldness, I was filled with like strength and confidence, because I knew God was bigger and stronger. And so I start doing all the things I was talking about before. I start praying, I start asking for the power of God to just come and move, and this dream was crazy because I could feel like God's power being with me in the dream, in the sense that like things in the dream, I was outside, things started like flying around in the air, and like leaves and everything, like everything just started moving as I'm praying, as I'm like rebuking this thing, right? And so I noticed that there was like, you know, God was with me, but I noticed that these things were happening in my dream, and you know, to the point where the demon, right, that was trying to come after me in the dream, that was trying to kill me in the dream, he ends up turning around and he starts running away, right? And the crazy thing is, this ties into what I was just saying about sometimes the enemy will set traps for you that ends up being their demise, right? So he ends up running away from me outside, and he trips as he's running. And as he trips in the dream, when he falls, I guess there was like some sort of wood spike. I know this is graphic, by the way, so if you don't like graphic stuff, you can stop the video here, because this is pretty much it. But as he's running away, he trips and he lands on like this wood spike, and he basically impales himself, right? And so I woke up and I got the victory, and I was like, I didn't even have to do anything. I didn't even have to throw hands. I didn't have to like use a gun. I didn't have to do anything. It was God, and he, the person who came to me in the dream to attack me in the dream, ended up running, and then they were dealt with, and I had the victory. So again, just remember, like, the more confidence you have, like, God will work with you, even in your dreams. It sounds so silly and so crazy, but like, you know, he is powerful. And I feel like we're coming into a time where, again, because the New Age and because Satanism and witchcraft and all these things are becoming more popular and normalized, we do need to learn these weapons, so that when we start to see more of this, when we start to deal with more curses and things like that, right? Because again, remember, these people do spells and they do rituals and they do use, you know, pictures of people and whatever. So when these things happen, just remember that God can train us up, and these weapons that we talk about, right, of our warfare, right, they're not carnal, right? And so in the real world, when you deal with these things, remember, you can still pray, you can still rebuke these things, you can worship, you can pray. These things are weapons of warfare, and I've really been learning that, because again, if you think about it, the enemy's plan is to get you to stop praying, to stop worshiping. He wants to get you tired, he wants to get you discouraged, he wants to get you to feel like you're in a place where everything is always going wrong. But remember that there's a reason for that. There's a reason why he wants you to feel that way, because he knows that these weapons of warfare are powerful, right? So even when you remind yourself of the truth, right, and you put on the breastplate of righteousness, all these things that it talks about in Ephesians, right, remind yourself of the truth. Don't listen to the enemy's lies, you know, all of these things, right? And so just remember that he's with you, okay? He's gonna continue to fight for you. Just continue to trust in him. And with that said, right, he's going to be with you. You don't have to fear these things. The only thing that we should really be fearful of is God himself, because he is more powerful than all of these evil minions, right? So with that said, that's it for this video. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to share this video if you feel like this would actually be helpful for somebody out there. Other than that, I will talk to you guys later. Okay, bye!